We've been talking about the powers, specifically what Paul refers to in Ephesians chapter 6, when he talks about how we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, and against the rulers of the darkness of this world. And we've been looking at the powers as the ideas, the means, the things that we just assume are true about the world, the things that we just assume that we understand how they work. And in so doing, we give a piece of ourselves, or we allow our mind to be shaped by others and by ways things have happened in the past, or how we've been taught without giving much consideration to it. We started out by talking about the powers of possessions and how our culture tells us to own things is to have power, but yet then those things exhibit power over us. And so today we're going to talk about another one that presents itself much like possessions as a servant. It presents itself as a helper, but it can become a power and something that we just yield authority to without giving it much consideration. And today is the powers of technology, the powers of convenience, if you will. And so as I was writing this and getting it together, I began to think about some of the ways that technology and advances and machinery and things have changed our lives. I thought about the fact that yesterday evening, clothes were washed in my household without hours of manual labor involved. They were put into a machine, soap was added, a button was pushed, and then the machine for the next 30 to 50 minutes ran through its cycles. When that was done, they were taken from that machine and put into another machine, and that machine was turned on, and for the next 55 minutes it ran its cycle, and then dry clothes came out of that. What an awesome thing that we have. Another one that's very real around our house is the dishwasher. This morning I closed that lid, hit the button, and walked away from it. 2 hours later, clean dishes are going to be there. These are wonderful things that we benefit from. Technology has advanced and has given us many gifts like this and the work that men and women have done with the knowledge that God has given to them. But Solomon reminds us about something, and we need to think about it, and it's from Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 23. And he writes about the fact that we are to keep our heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. In other words, we are to consider what is happening within us. And that's why we need to consider this issue of technology. Because just prior to that, in Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 20, Solomon says this, "My son, attend to my words." In fact, the whole book of Proverbs says over and over, listen, pay attention, watch this, look over here, look back this way. What did you just see there? It's a complete list of questions of what is happening around us and what are we seeing and what are we paying attention to, and within that are we seeking the wisdom that God has called us to have. And so I want to just challenge us about how the powers of technology can also be prohibitive and restrictive in our life, and how we may be allowing them to exhibit a lot of control over us that we may not consider. First of all, the powers are always clanging. Sound is constant. And I don't just mean the washing machine running or the dishwasher running or the refrigerator running or even that blessed air conditioner running. I mean, something is always running. There's always sound. And so many times in our households, that's the sound of the television. That's the sound of the podcast. That's the sound of a movie. That's those sounds that are just constantly in the background of our minds, and our minds are being occupied by those things. Now, you might say, as your kids have said, I don't listen to the lyrics when they're talking about a particular song that you're not fond of. I like the tune. And a lot of times we say, I'm not paying any attention to that television in the background or that podcast that's going on in my ear. It's just there for sound. Well, sound at times can be harmful to us. And there's always going to be clanking. There's always chattering. I don't know if you've noticed this, but everybody has an opinion about everything. And in today's culture, in today's society, with the technology advances that we have, everybody has the freedom to put that opinion in front of you. Much like some of you all, every now and then I will log on to Facebook and I will start to scroll and I will say, not today. Close it off. It's not that somebody's done anything horrible or done anything bad. I just did not need to hear everybody's opinion upon a particular topic. And so that power is something that rests over us if we're not careful and paying attention. The other thing is, because of that, it can lead to what I just described in my own life, a condemning spirit, where we look down upon others because of what they share or what they don't share, or how they share it or how they don't share it. And so that can exhibit power over us. The scripture calls us to seek wisdom. Jesus, in the parable of the sower, says that some of the seeds were choked out because the cares of this world, not the needs of the world, not the functions of the world, but the cares, the things that we want to work, the things that we like to work, choked them out. So let me challenge you to consider technology and how it's present in your life, and whether or not it's using its power and authority over you, or we are wisely using it as a servant that God has given to us. God bless you. I'll see you next time.